In these true life stories, told by people that had hoped to achieve quick wealth and material success through scams, frauds, or other diabolical means, or people who had experiences seeing and suspecting people involved in such diabolical practices. I'm going to use some certain terms to make my non-African audience better understand the slangs and the context. For the records, Yahoo or Yahoo Yahoo is a term or slang that refers to any form of internet fraud, internet scams, where people engage in dubious means or scams through the dark web to make money. I will also use Yahoo Plus in this series of stories, mostly centered around Africa, where Yahoo Plus is a term that refers to money rituals. This is a pagan practice of offering human blood, body parts, and other body fluids to spirits or deities in exchange for wealth. In recent times, this practice has gained popularity as some people get desperate in their quest for material gains. And with that said, if you're a lover of disturbing, dark, and spooky true life stories, then you might consider subscribing, turn on all post notifications, and give a chic kiss to the like button. And with that said, let's get into these first person stories. I live in Nigeria. My own case is not a case of Yahoo, but rather the case of Yahoo Plus. Sometime in 2020, I left Abuja to go and stay with my cousin brother at Obanu Road, Anambra State. When I arrived that night, I saw his house. It was very big and beautiful. At the sight of seeing his magnificent place of abode, a lot of things ran through my mind. I said in my mind, "Oh Lord, see what a 24 years old guy possesses, and at 22 years, I haven't achieved anything of value." The next morning when we woke up, he called me and told me that since I was here at his place, that I will have to follow him to work. From working with him, we started visiting shrines. At that time, I was a novice. I only get to look around and see things for myself when I was in the shrine. We went somewhere and the Dibia, also referred to as the native doctor, gave my cousin a soap and some substances to bath with. I was the one that escorted him to the river at the middle of the night. His new wife didn't know anything about these secret travels, but I knew she loved money. I had to exchange some money to various 50 naira notes for him to bet with. After bathing with it for 7 days, he threw that money on the road. After the whole exercise, I told him I was coming back to Abuja to write my carryover exams, and after that, I would come back to his place to do my own ritual. He then said okay. After 2 weeks, he called me to say that he had bought a new car, and not just that, but he had also moved into a new housing estate in New Oba. I shouted wow to show how happy I was for him, and then I reminded him that I was coming to do mine before December that year, in 2020. He even went ahead to tell me how he was now building a new story house in the village. A new story building? I asked him, and he confirmed again. I was bewildered. Everything happened so fast. However, he didn't enjoy that money, even for 2 months. And this was because he slept and never woke up again. He was just 24 years old. He left his new wife and child behind. Rest in peace, brother, but you chose the wrong path. The year 2017 was a difficult time for me and my family. During that period, I was waiting for NYSC postings since I graduated in 2015. I had my friends who were very close and dear to me. We all went to the same secondary school, though one of them dropped out. I took them as my brothers. One of them, whom I will refer to as T, had just started doing Yahoo, and he would always say that his clients were not paying. From there, he started developing the desire to do Yahoo Plus, which is Yahoo that comes with juju, or should I say ritual. As a good friend then, I just respected him for the fact that he was doing Yahoo, but I want him not to go diabolical and not to get myself involved in any way. So as time went on, I noticed T was always talking down on me because I was always repulsive towards his method of trying to make money. Some days he would tell me in pidgin English, I must collect, which literally means I must receive. I didn't understand this then, as he was making plans to use me. So he now went to meet another guy. Meanwhile, I didn't know that this other guy, whom I will refer to as Rex, had been in the Yahoo game. One night, they were discussing. They opened up to each other, and it seemed the first guy, T, has been trying to get me but couldn't. Hence, he now wanted to join forces together with the other guy, Rex. Rex, who had been in the game, knows every diabolical means to make money. The funny thing is that I took them for granted even when I was seeing the signs. Thinking back now, I feel very ignorant. They literally didn't try to hide who they were or what they were doing for a living, as they would tell you bluntly that they are the devil. I ignored it because I had this bond with them, so I thought. Now, during that Ember period in 2017, things got hot. They really fought me spiritually, but I was unaware. All their juju or rituals which they do behind me weren't working. There was this particular time we were together, so they called me over to come and eat. While we were eating together, I felt something was off about the food, as from the look on their faces, you will know they were just up to something. I later realized that the food was a spiritual poison to make me give in to what they wanted from me. But it failed because of my repulsive spirit, and this particular situation got them really surprised. I was always repulsive during that period and for no reason, and which I can't explain. It was just as if something pushed me to act that way. It got to an extent that one of them asked me codedly or indirectly if I belonged somewhere or to a group, as he believed I belonged to a cult group too. I told him I do not belong to any cult. Now, because they could not get to control me spiritually, they now went full force to kill me and use my parts for rituals. Only God knew how I was able to bypass it, as I was later told by a close friend of theirs that they had planned to kidnap me and take me to a Badan, where I would be killed and used for rituals. In November that year, they moved to another plan. This time, God now finally opened my eyes to see what was going on. Earlier on, I begged one of them to give me money to buy something. I told him I needed just 200 naira. So he told me he would give it to me the next day, and then I obliged. So the next day, unknown to me, they had a diabolic plan. This time, it was to make me mad and useless. After we had spent time together, I now told the guy I was ready to go and that I needed the money I asked him for. They then took me to one corner, brought out 500 naira and asked me to go and buy what I wanted and bring back the change for them. I didn't know it then, but the purpose of this was to use the money as an exchange for my destiny. Once I do it, I will later become mad and useless. The moment I touched the 500 naira note, I felt a huge force and I began to see everything they were up to. At that point, I changed my words. I told them that instead of the 200 naira I requested, that I now wanted 500 naira. My suspicion was confirmed after that moment of revelation, as they insisted I give them back the change of 300 naira after taking the 200 naira I initially requested from them. Seeing their reaction, I now told them that I didn't need the money anymore. I stood my ground, and that was when they knew it was over. The guy T collected back the money, while the other one, Rex, was trying to convince me to take it and do what they say. I told him I wouldn't. Then he now called me a big fool. Honestly, if I remember all these things, I just laugh. After everything, I thank God for saving me all the while. Because of that, my curiosity to try to understand myself grew stronger. I wanted to know the real reason why they were after me. After a while, I got to know I have got a strong spiritual backing from my roots and I've been destined for something great. That was why they never stopped. If I had not realized, I don't know what I would have been today. I will advise everyone listening to my story to stay away from people that do Yahoo or anything illegal or diabolical. If they see you have something mighty in you, they will fight you to get it, especially if you are a man. It is sometimes very hard to spiritually get a man than to get a woman, and so always stay spiritually alert. One thing that is very common about Yahoo guys is that they are chronic liars and hardened criminals. Believe them at your own peril. There was this young guy that came with his boss to do some pop work in our new house. By pop work, I mean interior house decorations. This guy was good at what he does, but he couldn't hold on and finish his apprenticeship. By looking at him, he should be about 18 years or so. During the time they were working for me, I would always hear him talk about his friends and how they drive different exotic cars, like G-Wagon and Mercedes-Benz. He always talks about his friends and how rich they were and the kind of latest iPhone they use. On one occasion, I called him and engaged him in a conversation, and I noticed that he had plans to join his friends soon. I advised him to stick with his work, especially since I learned he has 7 months to start his own business within that field of interior design and decorations. I even went further to tell him the dangers of engaging in internet fraud. After 2 months, I called his boss and gave him another job. When they started the job, I noticed that the young boy was not available. And so I asked his boss about his whereabouts, and he told me that the boy just stopped working 1 week after they had initially came to my house for decorations. According to the boss, the boy called to tell him that he was no longer interested in the apprenticeship. A few weeks later, the guy came to visit his former boss with a Benz car. He told his boss that the business he does was a better and legit kind of business and not the kind of business he does where they had to work and hustle day and night. The man tried to advise him, but it was just a waste of time. After 6 months of him being into internet fraud business, Yahoo business or whatever they call it, his boss came to me and told me what he had witnessed. One day he was just passing via a street and saw that this guy was now completely a mad person. He was mentally unstable. After seeing that, he had to call his family members to be aware of what he saw. And that's how his life was wasted. God have mercy on this our generation. Peer pressure affects a lot of our young people, and sadly, most parents contribute to it too. I was one of those who supported Yahoo business full-time before I joined my denomination in 2019 and had my own personal encounter with one. One fateful Wednesday, during our Wednesday service, this boy was seated next to me. From the beginning of service, this boy has been sleeping like someone on sleeping pills. When it was time to clap hands, he was sleeping. During time for singing and worshiping, he was sleeping. In fact, during the whole worship session and service, he slept all through. As prayer was going on, our pastor called him out, but he was reluctant to go. It happened that the boy lives in HK, located in Owerri, and this was what happened. The boss always compensated the ones that have served him completely during their period of apprenticeship with the sum of 3 million naira and a car, which most of these boys end up squandering in useless ways, and the plot behind this was to lure in more young boys to him. Unknown to this apprentice that the boss spiritually take and use their destinies in return during the moment these boys were serving him. The wife was quite aware that the man, her husband, was a ritualist. He feeds them only on Friday nights, and after he was done with his rituals, he equally drinks the water these boys remain after they had taken their bath. But none of the boys were aware, as they were only instructed not to pour away the water remaining after they had taken their bath. And no matter how dirty the water looks, they were always told not to pour away the remaining few scoops of water left. They always obeyed as they have been bewitched enough that they can't ask questions on why they should leave some portions of water after bathing. That was how that fine young man's destiny was used. Before, I was so ignorant to the evil happening in the name of Yahoo, but many of my male friends that joined Yahoo full time, their way of life scares me that I had to block them across all social media sites for my own sake. There was another good friend of mine, I would refer to him as Polo. Since last 2 years, he was so broke that sometimes I do assist him, and then all of a sudden, I stopped hearing from him, only for him to reappear around the middle of last year in all glory. Polo is now bastardly rich that I wanted to start cruising with him, but when we re-exchanged contact and I saw his WhatsApp status, I had no option but to run for my life. That contact he gave me was his main contact, and on his status was written, "If you like what you see and you want updates, DM me." He invited me to several parties and occasions, and I ran for my life. I told him that he's not the guy I know, or he was not the guy I knew, and I can't groove with the guy I'm seeing now to avoid any sort of bad thing from happening to me, or even to be influenced. Till this day, his young friends and close acquaintances keep dying every time, and I do pity Polo because I do fear for his life and what may eventually come upon him. I went to Ghana in 2019 to serve one Mr. Shema, who was a strong member of Pure Ministry, a certain church in Ghana. We always referred to our boss as a pure born-again Christian. In fact, every day of the month we do night vigil and dry fasting. After 3 weeks of staying in Ghana, I was able to hustle and get some certain amount of money from Yahoo. My family needed money at that moment, so out of the money I had, I took out a certain amount to feed myself for a certain period, and then send the rest to my family. Just after sending the money to my family, a few days later, I was called and told that my mother was sick. She later managed to recover to some extent, and over the following days, I cashed out a certain amount of money and then sent some portion of the money to my family as I had done initially. Then 2 weeks later, I was called again. My mother had fallen sick again. To make matters strange and mysterious, after diagnosis, the hospital she went to couldn't find anything that might have caused her illness. She was then taken to a white garment church, which was the church we attended, and it was after prayers that it was revealed that it was someone who was living outside the country from her family that had wanted to use her for money rituals. I remember while in Ghana, I hardly go out to events except for church services. Then, I only got to know of the cause of my mother's constant and strange illness because my baby sister made a post on her Facebook timeline where she wrote, and it read, "Because of money, you want to use your mother for ritual," alongside crying emojis. Immediately I saw that, I had to call my brother, who then updated me on everything happening. A few days later, my mother got well. She was now healthy, and then I started having issues with my boss. Some weeks later, I came back home to Nigeria, and that was when I found out the truth of the whole situation. Mr. Shema, my supposed boss, is a strong occultic man. He and his fellow occult members were using one social club as a cover. Their mode of operation was to use the destiny of their boys, who were also their servants or apprentices, and the destiny of that of their family members. I remember Mr. Shema's first boy servant named Michael Ade, who was rendered useless, and this was a boy that had been with him for 5 years before I came into the picture to serve him too. His wife was a full housewife, and he would always quote one verse from the Bible: "I will bless the works of thy hands." These days, blood money had gone digital under the name of Yahoo or Jigai. I personally left internet fraud not because I like poverty and suffering, but because I have seen the dark side of it. And at this point, all I can say is, may God bless the legitimate works of our hands.